Hey everybody, it's Jack with Future Pastimes, and in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of a second edition for Cosmic Encounter. To be clear, there are no plans currently for such a thing to happen, and I know some of you are like, what do you mean second edition? Wasn't like the Mayfair edition, the second edition? What I mean is within a publisher. So Fantasy Flight is no stranger to the idea of a second edition. They've done that with Arkham Horror. They're on their third edition with that. Twilight Imperium is on its fourth edition. So it's not an unusual concept for them. And I think it would be an interesting way to do a refresh and re-inject some excitement and prolong the longevity of Cosmic Encounter. And I know that anytime you come out with a new edition, I know a lot of the people with the previous edition are like, hey, what gives? You know, we already have all the stuff from the previous edition. Don't make us buy the new edition. Well, nobody's forcing you to buy the new edition. And I know you're like, yeah, but if it's going to be better, don't I want the new edition? And the answer is yes. Yes, you do. And yeah, we do want you to buy a new edition if that's the case. And I don't know. I mean, I know that people have mixed feelings about it, but we at Future Pastimes would be all for it. And this kind of came out of a discussion over on the Dune side of the Future Pastimes gang. We very much would love to do a second edition of the Gale Force 9 Dune. They've got their Kwisatz Haderach Gamefound edition. We don't yet really even know what that is. Will it be a new edition for Dune? Probably not, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't love to do it. There's definitely areas that we would like to see improvement on, and the same is true for Cosmic Encounter. I think that Fantasy Flight has done a fantastic job with Cosmic Encounter. It is, in my opinion, the best edition that is available. But, and I know that many of you will agree with this, could it be better? Could it have been better? Could it yet be improved? The answer is unequivocally yes. It could definitely be improved. How would we improve it? I think the first thing is we would take some lessons learned in the development of and publishing of Cosmic Odyssey. Now, one of the interesting things that happened in that is working with Frank Brooks over at Cosmic Encounter. He was very surprised and a little bit alarmed, if we're being honest, that there wasn't like a style guide for Cosmic Encounter. And definitely there should have been. And by which he was talking about some document that captures how do we phrase things when we're talking about X, Y, and Z. If we're talking about ships that are captured, if we're talking about whether or not you need all of your home planets to keep using your alien power, or at least 3 of them, or whatever the case may be. I mean, we all know from these many years of the Fantasy Flight edition that there have been multiple ways that the same effect has been phrased. But what we've also learned over time is that when people see that something is phrased in a slightly different way, they assume that there is a different outcome that is expected. And they're looking for what is meant there. They're like, well, normally this effect is phrased like this, but this one is phrased differently, so it must be different. And it wasn't. It was just somebody was like, yeah, here's what it is, and I used a shorthand or a paraphrased or whatever the case may be. It was a different author. It wasn't quality control checked to the degree that a Bill Martinson or some of you other superfans would have wanted and frankly expected. I think it's not unreasonable to expect the same consistent wording for the same effect. And yeah, I think that that's something that that Frank recognized, and he wanted to have some level of consistency. And, in some cases we went back and we said, well, this is the most common, or this was the first way that this was phrased, so we're going to start capturing that. And he did start capturing it, I think, with the mind for going forward, not really knowing or maybe being overly optimistic, but the Fantasy Flight still at this point has no plans to do any additional content for Cosmic Encounter. So that was one thing, is we would say, yeah, let's start with actually, maybe using what Frank has created, or and building on it, or creating something new from scratch, knowing that it is a second edition, but saying, yeah, let's start laying out consistent things. And let's go to the multiple FAQs, as well as to the different debates within the Cosmic Encounter communities about the different FAQs. And let's look at ways to eliminate a lot of those questions by rephrasing things in the rulebook and on alien sheets, and finding ways to say, yeah, here is a more consistent approach, and here's a way to arm players to be able to make decisions when there isn't a clear answer from the text there. So things like, yeah, one of the biggest questions is, when does an encounter start? When does it actually, the encounter? Is it when you get to the planning phase? Is that when the encounter is starting? And the answer is no. It started back in the regroup phase. That's a whole thing. That's all of the encounter. And maybe we should come up with a different term, or look at ways of better defining that. So that's one thing. Another area that I think a lot of players would appreciate if it was a little more consistent and clear is about the use of an alien power, when it can it be zapped. And there might be a way to develop a clearer way of understanding which part of the alien is zappable, and when, which aliens can you get some information about, oh, I'm targeting this player, or I'm targeting this card for an effect, and then I can zap it. Or do I have to preemptively zap it? Do I have to zap it? Do you have to announce, I'm preparing to use my alien power at this point, so before anybody knows what is actually going to happen, zap me now. Which, of course, is not what I think anybody wants, but it needs to be better defined. So that would be one thing. And going back to Cosmic Odyssey, I think we were looking at, the alternate timeline aliens. We would revisit all of the aliens and say, okay, how is this alien stacking up now, 40 years later? Should it be rephrased? A lot of those very first aliens, the first 15, first 20 from previous editions, if they had come out later, they probably would have been a little bit different. They might have had a better defined range of effect. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like Pacifist, for instance, it's a strong alien, but if you have no negotiates, you have no power. So if that had come out in like the 4th or 5th expansion, would it have had some sort of gimmick to get a hold of negotiate cards, similar to how Nanny does, because Nanny depends on negotiate cards to use its alien power? That's something worth looking at. I don't know that we would change anything. The idea of keeping a lot of the aliens simple and pithy and straightforward concepts has a lot of value. But I think we would look at, all right, maybe we shift around some of those aliens in the base set, look at which aliens would be in the different expansions, which variants. So I think technology, which I like just fine, I don't think that would become a base game variant in a next edition of Cosmic Encounter. I think the reward deck is your obvious choice for including in the base game as a variant. It's not, I think it's still not part of the basic rules, and maybe even you look at flares as maybe being something that is not part of the standard rule set, but is a variant that is recommended for once you have a decent grasp. I still teach, when I'm teaching new players, I throw flares in right away. I don't ever hold that back. But I do have a flareless age card for the campaign, as I think it's an interesting variant to have mixed in. And it was an expansion variant. So, the original Cosmic Encounter had no flares. I think it's part of why the Avalon Hill version of Cosmic Encounter didn't have any flares. It was kind of going back to the basics. But flares, I think, are one of the best additions to Cosmic Encounter, and I think it's an integral part of it. But I understand the value of making it modular and easing people into the experience. So yeah, I think that there's a number of things that we would do, and we would switch around, the mix of aliens in each expansion, the way the variants unfolded. I think having the benefit of the new types of technologies that came in Odyssey, the new types of hazards that came in Odyssey, the new take on space stations. So if you were going to redo Cosmic Storm, it would have more than 10 space stations, and that cardboard footprint would be different, a little bit smaller, so that it would be easier to include more. That is the approach that I think you could take with a second edition of Cosmic Encounter. And frankly, as somebody who was very keen to, as a completist, to get those elements that we were going to bring into another expansion that we have codenamed Cosmic Universe, could be a way to get some, if not all, of that content or similar content into a second edition, because you wouldn't necessarily have to wait until an 8th expansion in order to bring that in. It is still pretty advanced. Like the special systems, that's an advanced thing, but it's the sort of thing that you could say, yeah, we're going to bring that in into a 5th expansion or 6th expansion, rather than holding it off, and maybe you shift around some of the other things in order to accommodate it. And of course, if we knew that it was a possibility, we would dive back into the playtesting for it to optimize all of the aliens and all of the special systems. And this is not what this video is about, as a please, let's get that in there. But that's always on my mind. So I think that a second edition of Cosmic Encounter is a great way to reintroduce Cosmic Encounter to yet another generation. I think enough time has passed. It's the sort of thing where it's been long enough since Cosmic Encounter was fresh in the marketplace. A new edition would re-energize it. And you might look at some other things that might give it a boost of popularity once again. It's a great game. It was recently inducted into the Board Game Geek Hall of Fame as one of the first batch of games, and I think it more than most of the games, I would argue, that have been inducted in, its influence has rippled out across board gamedom. Just the idea of expansions, Cosmic Encounter is really the leader on that, and the variable player power thing. Cosmic Encounter it's got to be the king, the König der Stern of that kind of effect, and a lot of other things. I mean, just there's a lot of the negotiating, and that was certainly around before, but innovative ways that it brings players in to into the game, so that there's really no downtime. A lot of interesting and innovative things that Cosmic Encounter brought. So I think it's a game that deserves to stick around. Now, if the license for Cosmic Encounter expires at Fantasy Flight and they decide, yeah, we're done with that, or we're not going to meet Future Pastime's outrageous demands for continuing publishing Cosmic Encounter, which I think we would probably have some demands if it comes time to renew. And then it ends up going somewhere else, then yeah, we would be looking at a new edition at that point. I think it would build on everything that Fantasy Flight has done, everything that Kevin Wilson started when he was shepherding Cosmic Encounter into the 21st century. Build on that, keep a lot of what he did and what Fantasy Flight brought to the table, because they have brought a lot of good, a lot of value. They've really elevated the experience in just about every measurable way. And then looking at where can we make it a little bit better without going too crazy. I wouldn't want to change Cosmic Encounter very much. And in most cases, just making it easier to learn, easier to play, and easier to get to the table more consistently. And keep the fun. Help people understand right there in the rule book of what the game experience can be like. And I think that's one area where the rule book has always made assumptions and left unsaid the types of things that can and should go on during a game of Cosmic Encounter that really elevates the enjoyment of the game experience. But I want to hear your opinion. If there were going to be another edition of Cosmic Encounter, what areas would you want to see focused on? What specifics would you want to see implemented? What discussion topics would you like to enter into? It is mostly a thought experiment because, again, I said there's no discussions, but and I don't expect anybody from Fantasy Flight watches these videos. Why would they? But you know, again, as discussion comes up, if we ever do enter into a discussion, it would be good to be able to point to here's what the most enthusiastic or psychotic, depending on how you might classify yourself with your cosmic fandom, feel about what the next iteration of Cosmic Encounter might be like. That's it for this one, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.